Hi, I'm Mayor Mike McGinn, and I live up here in Greenwood. I got 3 kids, Jack, Mio, and Kian. 2 of them are at Nathan Hale, one's at Salmon Bay. My wife's a bookkeeper for a construction company who used to be in Ballard. Now she's downtown, does home remodeling work for people. For a number of years, and I know a number of you in the room from work I've done in the past, for a number of years I was very active in my own neighborhood of Greenwood. I was president of the Greenwood Community Council. I was a lawyer in private practice downtown. I was also very active within the Sierra Club as a volunteer. And one thing led to another, and I actually formed a nonprofit that was focused on a lot of the same issues we face right now. How in a growing city do we make it green and sustainable, affordable and equitable for all, yet still maintaining and promoting our economic vibrancy, because that's really at the heart of how we're going to accomplish what we want to achieve here in the city. And one thing led to another, and I saw an opportunity to run for mayor. I thought I could get more done there than as the head of a small nonprofit, and that's what I did. I ran for office. So 4 years ago, it's worth taking a look at where we were 4 years ago. We had almost no construction going on in the city. Unemployment was high, and a little bit of an economic storm there during that period. In fact, we've even had a couple of snowstorms, a garbage strike, protests. We've had a few things in the past few years. But I want to report to you that I think our city, character of this city is pretty strong. We have now seen over the last few years, we have seen that the economic growth in Seattle, job creation, we've added about 6.5% job growth in terms of from the base of jobs we had to where we are. That's nearly double the national average of 3.1%. So that's the good news. We're also seeing construction occurring again. We're seeing more housing built. We're seeing more office space built. In fact, we are one of the fastest growing urban economies in the nation. And again, that's good news. Now we're going to have to deal with how do we respond to that good news? And I say this, one of the parts of my job is I get to meet with mayors from other places, and there are lots of other mayors who would love to have a city like ours that was attracting new jobs and attracting new residents. There are cities all across this country that fell behind, that didn't evolve with the times, and that are actually losing jobs and people to them. So we're in a good space, and we're in a good space because of all of the history and tradition that Seattle has around innovation, around entrepreneurship, around the quality of life we have in our neighborhoods, the fact that we have a really good higher education institution in UW. It's a whole host of reasons why we have been a place of innovation, including that we literally stuck a flag in the ground on that 50 years ago with the World's Fair, right? We're going to be the city of the future. And I think that spirit has infused Seattle over the last 50 years. And where 50 years ago, who knew who Seattle was? Now we're known all over the world for what we do. Now that economic storm meant that we also had a budget storm as well. So I got some stats here. You'll permit me to read them for a second. When I took office in 2009, we faced a budget that was in the red. I had to go in for mid-year cuts. Over these last few years, we've had $149 million in budget cuts we've had to make between mid-year, end-of-the-year reductions. We also had a rainy day fund that had been spent down by $20 million. I can report to you that each year I've been in office, we have ended the year in the black, and that the rainy day fund, by the end of 2014, under our submitted budget, will be higher than pre-recession levels. So we've been rebuilding the rainy day fund as well. I'm kind of frugal as an individual, and I'm frugal as a mayor. We did it without any general tax increases. We did it through, we did have special levies for education and libraries and the seawall, which were approved by the voters, but no across-the-board new business tax was instituted during that time period. We did it through efficiencies. 19 labor unions came to us, and we renegotiated their contracts in the middle of their contracts. And they went from automatic pay raises to actual inflation, which saved us millions of dollars. We renegotiated a deal with the county on the jail so that we didn't have to build a new jail in our neighborhoods, and instead we have a long-term contract with the county for jail services that saves them money, saves us money, which was the right thing to do. So we did have to make trims and cuts, though, as well, but we did so in the ways that could protect services as much as possible. And today, we'll have the same number of police officers on the force that we had before, and we'll have more officers on patrol, because we shifted people from other functions onto patrol. And when they're on patrol, we are now directing them through evaluation of evidence and data to the places with the most crime, or directed patrols, which we've instituted in each neighborhood, which means that officers on patrol will spend more time out of their cars walking the beat and talking to people and being present where the 911 calls are coming from. And in places like Belltown, we've seen a dramatic reduction in 911 calls from the block faces on which they're working and from the beats in which we're doing the directed patrols. So that's effective. We maintained our fire services. We kept all our community centers open, but we did have to trim the hours back a little bit, and that's something I'd love to reverse. It's one of the first things I want to reverse. We didn't touch programs that affected kids, because education, youth development was important. In fact, now we're in a position we're expanding what we're doing. We're expanding our Seattle Youth Violence Prevention Initiative. And we did ask for more community center hours in the last budget that we sent down to the City Council. Now, I'm talking about what we've done, the budget and what we've done, some of the budget-related things. But I also want to just take a minute to talk about how we did it. And in this administration, and this comes from my own background as a community council member, I know what it feels like to think that, who in government is listening to me, and how do you make things work? And I've made it a point to do walking tours and neighborhood town halls. I think I've done something like 108 neighborhood town halls, walking tours, outreach events. And I don't go alone. I bring with me department heads and staff. And if we can connect people right then and there to solve a problem, we do it. Eliminate the middleman if you can. And that's the attitude I've taken with all of government. I want all of government to work responsively to the public. So when I took office, we started doing department head meetings, cabinet meetings weekly. That turned out to be a little too much, so we switched to every other week. But the point was, I want people to touch one city government and not be told, oh, that's some other department's fault. And so we've worked in collaboration around IDTs, interdepartmental teams. Sorry for the acronym on neighborhoods. One of your questions here is neighborhood planning, and I want to talk about neighborhood planning for a second. We've tried to move from, when I took office, we did two kind of major updates of neighborhood plans. And we picked the places furthest from downtown, frankly. One was Bitter Lake, the other was Rainier Beach. Undeniably, two neighborhoods that deserve more attention from the city. And we did the full-scale neighborhood planning, and you'll see up in Bitter Lake, we also made a significant capital infrastructure investment to rebuild Linden Avenue. 1,000 seniors, 1,000 low-income folks. It's the center of their urban village. You couldn't even walk safely from one end to the other. So we're trying to focus resources, in neighborhoods in that way, which was, of course, challenging in a declining budget era. But we made a shift in how we're doing neighborhood planning. And I'm going to touch on neighborhood planning with this group because I know you're all engaged in it. And I went through it myself in Greenwood. And what we found with most neighborhoods is that the values and overall goals they set in their initial neighborhood plans remain essentially true today. That there's maybe some changes. The real question is, what are the priority implementation actions that a neighborhood wants to work on? That's the more challenging one. And remember those big adoption and approval matrices we all had? They were really long, and which was first and which wasn't, and the answers from the departments were all very vague about whether they do it or not. Right? It was because there wasn't a real sense of prioritization. What we've done now is, what I'd like to say is we're moving from an era of neighborhood planning to neighborhood implementation. So our goal is to go into places in which you have changing circumstances, whether through growth or otherwise, or really deeper need, and do focused work around what do we need to implement in that neighborhood. So as an example of that, we have our Only in Seattle fund, in which we're putting money into 19 neighborhood business districts right now. And those neighborhood business districts tell us what's important to them. We want to see that it's something that benefits the entire neighborhood, attracts people, improves the quality of the neighborhood. It could be marketing, it could be streetscapes, it could be cleaning, facade improvement. And we do what they ask us to do. So we're in 19 neighborhoods doing that. We've done focused planning around light rail stations. We're going to do one in the U District as well. But we try to sit down a neighborhood at a time. We've done it for Pioneer Square and the ID. Those are neighborhoods that are, have big changes going on, and how do we work with those individual neighborhoods and take out their strengths and focus on their strengths and help bring resources to them with their time, attention on the most pressing problems that are identified by those neighborhoods. So we're going to keep going down that path as well. I'll talk a minute about transportation. We have a, and I could talk for way too long about transportation, so I'll try to keep this one tight. because it's a big issue. It's a big issue at the state level, the regional level, the local level. I mean, all of them are typified, all of them have the same basic issue, which is, the desire for the big new shiny thing has outweighed, taking care of the basics. So our state highway system has a $60 billion maintenance backlog. Locally, we have trouble with maintenance, keeping up with the maintenance. We are behind on our maintenance. This is a situation, I inherited, but it's been true for a long time, keeping up with maintenance on our roadways. And I do want to give credit to prior Mayor Greg Nichols for bridging the gap, because that was getting a focus on rebuilding, and taking care of our maintenance. So we're still behind. It's unquestionably true. What I've done in the last few years is every time we have spare money, I put it into basic maintenance. In fact, over the last few years, I think we put $30 million more into basic maintenance. When we sold the rubble yard, we put the money into that. When we've gotten extra real estate excise taxes, we focused on street maintenance. We've restarted a chip sealing program. When chip seal roads are up in the north end and other places as well, we're restarting crack sealing. It's hard to believe, but when you see all those cracks in the asphalt, if you don't seal them up, you're much more likely to get potholes. For some reason, under the last administration, they stopped doing crack sealing. So we restarted crack sealing last year. We're going to pick it up again. Now, those are just patches, spot repairs. Kind of the major maintenance we need to do is going to take new funding sources. And I've sought new funding sources on that. First, in a parking tax. In my first year, I requested more parking tax. The council approved a parking tax for Mercer and seawall design, but they didn't approve a parking tax so that we could expand basic maintenance and infrastructure amenities in neighborhoods. So that was in year one. We did come out with the commercial parking tax. The voters said no, it wasn't the right funding source, but that was an objective there as well, was to try to do basic maintenance as well. So we'll come back again and try again. I've been meeting with mayors around the state to go to the state to get a better funding source so that we can have more dedicated funding to taking care of our roads. Now, I've talked about the basics first because everybody uses those roads, whether you're on, 2, 4, or how many wheels a big tractor trailer has. Everybody uses those same roads. They need to be maintained, or 2 feet, right? They all need to be maintained, right? I think Gloria was telling me 2 feet over there, too. So they all need to be maintained. But we do need better transit. And we launched a transit master plan to look at what is the best way to do transit. It was an update of our transit master plan. And what we found was, and it's interesting, you can pay experts to tell you something, and then when they say it, you kind of get it. Everybody kind of knew it all along. We're doing a better job at connecting our regional centers to other regional centers. We're not doing a great job of connecting neighborhoods to each other. And Sound Transit is a regional high-capacity rail system. It's not designed to connect local neighborhoods to each other. So our transit master plan has identified 5 corridors where high-capacity transit should be put in. That means we need to give it more priority in the right-of-way, and we need to look at rail or real bus rapid transit. Rapid ride is a definite improvement. The ridership is up, but we're talking about a higher scale of priority and quality. And we've started work on that. We have the First Hill streetcar line. We have planning money to connect First Hill to South Lake Union. We are working with Sound Transit. We've advanced the joint planning with Sound Transit on getting from downtown to Ballard. That might be a fully separated, full ST type of line, or it might be an extension of our streetcar line that gets you out through Fremont and Ballard and does a better job of connecting neighborhoods. That's part of that planning. And we're also going to look at connecting East Lake to South Lake Union. The advantage to rail is you can, at a certain capacity, when you get more and more people, rail is more efficient. It's cheaper per person because of the size of the cars and the multiple cars. So, and it's a trade-off. At some point, buses are better. At some point, a streetcar is better. When it's more local, at some point, separated rail is better. So we're doing the full analysis and trying to pick the best type of mode for each corridor, because we are going to need more transit as well. And we have a challenge here. We're going to have massive construction projects downtown for a long time. We're adding more jobs, and there's only so much more efficiency for automobiles we can get out of that system. And we're going to put more money in the coming year into getting more efficiency out of our existing system for cars and buses. But long term, we have to build a better system of connecting neighborhood to neighborhood with transit. It's the only way we're going to accommodate the jobs and growth and the preferences of people that exist right now. More people are choosing, and this gets to the next topic, I'll use this as a transition to the next topic, We're adding more jobs and housing in the city because we're a desirable place, but it also reflects really broad demographic trends as well, which is the younger generation really wants to live in places that are walkable, connected with transit, with a lot of mixed uses. The number of 16-year-olds nationwide that get a driver's license as soon as they turn 16 has gone down. The amount of driving nationwide by 18 to 34-year-olds is down something like 23% over the last decade. And, you know, part of the reason is this, right? I got teenagers, you know, and one of them's getting their driver's license at 16, one took to 17 or 18, but at age 13 or 14, they were all connected to each other by text, right? So people want to connect now in a different way, and they want to connect to each other this way with devices, but they also want to connect to each other person to person with exciting experiences. And that is why our neighborhoods, which have been attractive for a long time, are so desirable. Now, here's the deal. How much time do I have?
None. Okay.
Okay. Well, let me finish this thought.
Okay.
I'll finish this thought because it goes to growth and gentrification, and then I think I will have covered almost everything. So I'll just finish this thought. This demand isn't going away, right? And again, it's a good thing for us because it means we're growing jobs, not leaking jobs like other cities. But it does mean that we're going to have to it's going to be a real challenge for us to accommodate that growth. Because if we don't find a way to build more housing, subsidized housing, and market rate housing, all of the people coming to town are going to outcompete the people that are here for the existing housing. And that's just the way it's going to be. So we have to figure out a way to bring in housing into our neighborhoods in a way that fits the neighborhood character, that enhances the quality of neighborhoods, but that also accommodates that job demand and demographic demand. And it's not just the kids, it's the older generation as well that wants to leave their house and yard behind and live in that walkable neighborhood too. We have changing tastes, we've got more jobs, and we got big challenges ahead of us. And we're not going to do it with subsidies alone. We're also going to have to look to have sensible ways to allow market rate housing to be built, or in-city living will become unaffordable to too many people because those that want to live here will just outbid the people that can't afford it. So I'll stop there.